Hello, and welcome to another episode of LIVSN Live, where we talk all things LIVSN, product design, product development, and this week we have an extremely special episode. We are going to be having Amos Schwartzfarb on here, and so if you don't know that name, Amos is the Managing Director of Techstars Austin. And if you're not familiar with Techstars, they call themselves the worldwide network that help entrepreneurs succeed. It's one of the two leading international business accelerators in the world, and it's something that we actually participated in. So this time we're actually going to be having Amos in here, and I'm going to let him join in right now. All right, we are waiting for Amos, and while we wait for Amos to pop up and take up half the screen, he is the Managing Director of Techstars Austin. So there you go. We see Amos right now. Can you hear us, Amos?
I can hear you. What's going on? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we already got a hashtag give first there in the comments. We got a few people here.
Hell yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so very cool. I was just introducing you. For anybody that's just come in here, we've got Amos Schwartzfarb, Managing Director, Techstars Austin, new author of a book that is it out yet, Amos, or is it coming? It's available.
It's available for pre-order. It comes out on 9/4.
Right. So we're going to be getting into questions with Amos on here. And for those of you watching right now, you are welcome to actually put comments in. We'll get a chance to come back and ask viewer questions. Also, it's always just good to remind people that a lot of our viewers come on YouTube after the fact, so this is going to be something you can watch. It'll be on our YouTube channel, and if you aren't a subscriber, you can sign on there. So if you're here, participate. If you're not here, you can watch it and tell your friends and see it there. So before we get too far into it, I do want to just give us an introduction and let people know who you are, Amos. Tell us who you are. I've kind of covered a little bit, but tell us what you do for work, and then tell us what you do for fun. So 3 things.
Cool. I'll do that. But before I do, can I just say congratulations on your kick-ass Kickstarter campaign?
Yeah.
You funded it, what, in like 12 minutes or something like that, and you're 5 times your goal?
Yeah, we were funded at 90 minutes, so 12 would be cool. But, 90 is still nothing to shake your head at. So funded in 90 minutes. We hit our goal. We doubled the goal in 6 hours, and now we're 9 times the goal. We're at 97,000 of a $10,000 goal. So
amazing! Congratulations! That's what, 1,000 pair of pants?
Yeah, right about 1,000 pairs of pants.
That's amazing, man! Congratulations!
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I'm Amos Schwartzfarb. I'm currently the Managing Director of Techstars Austin, and what that means is that I run our accelerator. An accelerator, if you don't know what it is well, it can take on a lot of definitions today, but what we do here at Techstars is we offer a 90-day program. We act sort of like an investor, although we roll up our sleeves really high and try to get inside the companies with our founders and try to help them do more faster. Try to figure out what path are they on? Is it the right path? If it's not the right path, how do we figure out the right path, and how do we go build big and meaningful companies that are doing cool things? That's what I do in my day job. And then for fun, I think I'm probably a great customer of yours. I like to get outside and get dirty. I ride mountain bikes. I rock climb. I really just like anything that can get me into the outdoors. I'm sort of doing it. And I spend most of my free time out there, either by myself or with my kids.
Right. And Amos regularly showed up to the office near downtown Austin on a mountain bike. He actually has figured out a way to get from his house, pretty far away from downtown, actually ride on single track mountain bike trails to work, and then gets to work and takes a shower and then rides home. So it's a pretty sweet setup.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 20-minute ride on dirt. Well, it's about an hour on dirt and 20 minutes on the road to and from the dirt. And so, I would walk into the office. I was just telling someone today, with not enough time to shower and being in sweaty cycling gear for a good couple of hours before I got a chance.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and we rode it once together, actually. While I was at Techstars as one of the founders, I started out up in Amos's neighborhood. We rode into work together one day.
Yeah.
I wish we would have done that more, but, understandable with all the work that was going on. So before we go too much further, I do want to tell people a little bit about two things. One, you mentioned it, our Kickstarter is live. As you see, if you're watching this on YouTube, it may be very close to going out, being done. We're at almost $100,000 in pre-sold pants. It's about 1,000 units, right? It's doing really well. And if you want to get that early bird, that Kickstarter special pricing, it's the time to do it now. It's going to go up after the campaign. And then while we're plugging, Amos's book is called Sell More Faster. So, and what, the name I think is very well chosen to tell about what's in the book, right? It's designed to help you find your product market fit, find or test your sales theories, and build and scale your organization so that you can hit quick growth fast, set yourself up on the right assumptions, the right, everything Techstars teaches you, right? You have the right market, the right buyer. What is the W3 method?
It's who are you selling to? What are they buying from you, and why are they buying?
Right. So it's common sense, but it's common sense that's overlooked, right? And it's just not thought about as deeply as it should be. If you go forward without diving into that first, right? So.
Yeah, that's right. Like once you have a mature company, you can answer those questions easily. But when you're still on the quest for product market fit, and if you don't know what product market fit, it just means that people actually want and value the thing that you're selling. While you're trying to figure that out, like you need to go and spend a lot of really painful and by emotionally painful and mentally painful time trying to figure it out, because until you figure it out, it's pretty impossible to build a long-term sustainable business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, and I'm excited to read it. I haven't had an advanced copy yet, for my review, but I'll be waiting for it.
Yeah. Can I just plug your pants for another second before, I own 2 pair of them. I know that we're talking about lots of stuff, and it's all that I wear whenever I wear pants. I'm traveling all over in them. I climb in them. I don't bike in them, but make a pair with chamois inside and maybe on a cold day. But I bike in them, I hike in them, I travel in them, I've slept in them. I actually put on a pair of jeans on Monday for the first time in a long time, and I felt really uncomfortable, and I'm back into my LIVSN pants for the rest of the week.
I appreciate it. Amos, you're our biggest fan, and you're actually, I don't know if you saw your review is one of the ones we put on the campaign, because it was honest, right? And it was so good. So
yeah,
thank you for that. So what this what this interview is designed to do is really give people an inside look at what actually happens at Techstars, right? I get questions all the time from friends, family, colleagues, and people in business world saying, what was it worth it? I get that a lot.
Yeah.
What'd you actually do? What did you actually learn? What did they actually do for you? What is it? Because people hear a lot about Techstars. They hear about Y Combinator. They hear about just, the thousands of other business accelerators that kind of pop up all over the world. And I think that there's some misconceptions about what goes on. So this conversation is intended to give people that are either interested in Techstars or just interested in startups kind of the idea of what really goes on, not just the boilerplate pitch and the elevator pitch, but the day-to-day.
Yeah.
So I've got some questions for you, and they kind of start with you, so we can get a foundation of who you are and why you are someone to lead startups. So give us a very shortened backstory. Tell us how you've managed to work out a life, getting paid to spend time helping other people build startups and riding your mountain bike into work.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, the reason he said very short is because at Techstars in the first couple of days, I do give my founder story. It's part of what we do traditionally, and it takes a long ass time. And it's a big kind of joke about that. So yeah, the quick story is I started my life not doing business stuff. I actually moved to California from New York to live in Yosemite and travel back and forth from there to Tahoe to Joshua Tree to climb rocks, and stumbled my way into a startup in the mid-90s that sold rock climbing gear. And little did I know that was going to change my life. And from there, was a part of, not including Techstars, which was more or less a startup when I joined, but 6 other startups over the course of about 20 years. Most of them were pretty successful. One was a complete dud. And through that process, really, early on, the 2 things that I fell in love with most was doing hard shit and building stuff and challenging and being able to see something that doesn't exist and then figure out how to make it exist. And then somewhere early on, but along the way, sort of realized that I have this natural knack, maybe for sales, but really more for early sales, which is, the three things that I talk about in the book, W3, like, we have a theory of who we're selling to and what our product is, but how do we prove that? How do we prove that with data so that we can build an interesting company? So I kind of fell in love with those two things, and really that gravitated me towards, always being in startups. I mean, I've been acquired into some big companies and it don't last very long. I don't really do well in that environment. Now, does that answer your question, or did I totally ramble to something else?
That's a really great, it shows that you were involved in several startups, probably had some good timing and luck involved, right? You got there at the right time.
100%. Yeah.
You helped it grow. You were a part of the exit. And so you've been able to, do that. You've seen a lot of different companies quickly, and you were part of some high growth teams. And so you ended up at Techstars where, you ended up in Austin, and then you ended up close to Techstars at the right time when they were looking for someone dynamic to lead a program, and you happened to be there, right?
Yeah, I love telling this story, and Jason, the person I'm going to mention, doesn't really remember it the same way. But in the last company that I had before Techstars failed, we lost a bunch of investors' money, which sucks, and I'm not smiling about that. It's a shitty feeling. Am I allowed to curse on here?
Yeah, you can curse.
All right, cool. But one of my investors was the person who was running Techstars at that time, and I went to have a beer with him to tell him that, hey, man, I'm really sorry, but we lost your money and the business is folding. And he said that's okay, because I was trying to figure out how to ask you to take my job because I'm moving into a new position at Techstars, and so that's how I ended up at Techstars.
Yeah, it's the wild world, right? You don't know what what each step you're taking is going to lead to the next one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip kind of the 30-second Techstars elevator pitch because you hit it earlier. So let's talk about this. Since so many founders want to be accepted into Techstars, right? And we know, it's very widely reported that it's harder to get into Techstars than it is to get into like MIT. It's like less than 1% of applications get approved. And there are only a few spots. So let's talk a little bit about what you look for in a young company who is trying to become, someone in the Techstars Austin Accelerator. And then secondary, how can a founder or founding team get in front of you the right way? Or how can they stand out, I guess, is a better way.
Yep. Okay. That's great. So before I give you the answer, the thing that I'll say is every managing director of every Techstars program is a little bit different. So what I'm telling you for me won't be exactly the same for everybody, but thematically we're all very similar. And so what I'm about to say is going to sound counterintuitive to what most founders think when they come and talk to any investor and think of a managing director of a Techstars program as an investor, which is that, you hear we care about the team and the people first, but the way that I think about it specifically is most of the time I don't even want to know what it is that you're building for the first couple of meetings. I want to figure out, I want to learn about you, and I want to figure out, can I get conviction that you have the ability at this point in your life to build a meaningful company. And I carefully use the word meaningful, not big, because I believe that if we can build a meaningful company and there's a big market, then we can build a big and meaningful company. And so I spend a lot of time trying to understand, and we talk about your company a little bit, right? Because I'm trying to understand, like, how you think about building businesses and what your real motivation is. But because this is hard, right? Like you have to want to do this for your life, and as because you're going through it right now, right? Like you have to be, bleed it every single day. So I really want to understand who you are as a person. And what makes you tick. And when I can get decent conviction around that, you never know for sure, but when I can get decent conviction around that and your ability to attract a great team, the next thing that I look at is there a big market here that, if we have the right team in place, we can do something interesting in that market. And there's a second part of that is it a market that I'm interested in? Because if I'm not interested, I'm not going to be a very good partner to you. But if those things fall in line, like that won't necessarily get you in, but that gets me to the small group of people that I'm then going to evaluate relative to one another. Until then, I evaluate everybody in a vacuum. And if you notice, one of the things that I didn't say is anything about your product. I really don't, I don't want to say I don't care about your product. And in your case, especially, I do care about your product because I wear your pants every day. But when we're talking about tech companies in particular, I can almost guarantee 90%, more than 90% of the time, the product you're building today is not the product that is going to be the big thing. I've just seen it enough times. It's just not how it works. But if you've got a great team that knows how to execute in the right market, we can figure out how to make that happen. And then so to your second question, there's sort of two answers to it. In order to impress me, be yourself and be sincere. And if there's chemistry, don't worry about impressing me. Let's see if there's chemistry. And I may or may not get conviction around your ability. Just because I don't get conviction doesn't mean you won't be successful. Or just because we don't have chemistry doesn't mean you won't be successful. It's really important to do that. But just be yourself and let's have a really honest, candid conversation. And the way to get in front of me is just email me, hit me up on LinkedIn, email me at amos@techstars.com. I will literally take either myself or my partner, Trevor, will take every single meeting that we get. We like to do these very short 20-minute meetings, and it's mutual, right? We try to spend 10 minutes each way. Like, you ask me questions, I ask you questions. Let's get to know each other mutually. Do we want to have a second meeting? And it's okay if we don't, and it's okay if we do.
And since I kind of sold this as getting it from both sides, right, you and me, I feel like it's important to say that the first time I had a phone conversation with you, I had no idea who you were or what Techstars really did. I didn't go looking for accelerators. I knew about Startup Weekend because I'd helped mentor for a Techstars Startup Weekend here in Fayetteville. But it was a mutual connection that says, hey, someone I knew that said, you're building a company, it's a startup. I know this person who just lives and breathes startups. Y'all should talk. So we had like a 20 or 30-minute conversation about, like you described, just kind of about startups and business and what we were doing. And then you're like, hey, would you want to talk to me and my, I think you might have been Trevor at that point.
Yep.
Trevor. And I was like, sure. And I hung up. And then I looked up what, who you were, who Trevor was, and I got really nervous, right? But like, it's probably a good thing because the first conversation wasn't loaded with expectation or me trying to really sell it. It was just, let's talk about what we're doing and see if I can get some help. So yeah. I don't know if everybody can follow that path of not, kind of erasing the fact that they know what Techstars is, but it probably helped get to a more real conversation quicker.
Yeah, well, and the person who introduced us thought we only invested in tech companies, which it clearly isn't true. It's largely true, but it isn't fully true. And so even like on every side, the introduction, and I love that, and it should always be like that. The introduction is like, hey, here's someone really cool and new to me. Like, do you get along and do you like what each other is doing? And if so, then you can have other conversations about a way to potentially work together.
Right. Well, that's cool. So, so we are in an interesting position where I'm a founder, you're an MD. We can give both sides. I also want to remind the people that are watching that this is interactive, right? So it's okay if you think that we're asking the best questions possible, but if you want to know something about Techstars, if you're in here because you're someone who's thinking about doing an accelerator or what, you can throw a question in here and we'll make Amos answer it. And so moving on though, so we can get a sense of kind of set and setting. We won't spend too much on this, but people want to know what the day-to-day is like. Are you in the office?
I am, yeah.
Okay, maybe you can just show it. Show the office, maybe describe or show the layout. Kind of what does it look like at Techstars?
Can you see it right there?
Yeah, just kind of hold it. Go slow though. Don't move any big movements. We can kind of see the wall mostly. Right
okay,
now.
Cool. I'm going to step out of the conference room just for a second so you can see. I'm trying to move slowly. Tell me if it's good or not.
It's good. Describe the space. So it's big and open, right?
Yeah, it's a big open space. We have no offices, 11 conference rooms, but really everybody, I'm going to bring it back to me, and a shower, of course, so we can cycle in and get clean. And really everybody sits out in the open, and we try to be as collaborative as possible. And when I say collaborative possible, and Andrew, jump in here. But one of the really magical things that happens is the companies naturally find ways to help each other and work together. And we're in such an intimate setting that it's like your family, your brothers and your sisters. And so, even though Andrew is, an apparel company, he was able to, I know for a fact, was able to help, some tech companies in the way they think about, you know, social marketing, and there's lots of that knowledge transfer back and forth, and there are so many things that can go back and forth. So it's really one of the beautiful and magical things.
Right. I remember, not to interrupt you, but I was about to do a podcast interview, and I'd never done one before, and the woman across from me was very good at being on camera, right, and being on there, and she's like, I sent her the list of questions and what I was going to say, and she's like, oh, no. She's like a PR person for a campaign, for like a political guy. Like, no, stick to your talking points. No, scratch that out. It's too much. You need to stick to the positive. And I went into that podcast interview way more confident than I would have, and it's just because I was sitting across from somebody at that time. So that does work, and it's cool.
Yeah.
So there's 9 companies, or 9 to 10, usually 10, right? In each class?
It's usually 10. Yeah, we did a little experiment with less last year, but it's usually 10.
Yeah, so 10 companies, number of people. You said we were a smaller class, so.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It varies greatly. So I think when our room was at max capacity, we were probably like 21 or 22 or 23. I've had rooms filled with almost 60 people. So it really varies. And that varies on lots of things, but, you know, solo founder, team, you know, we had a lot of solo founders this past year.
Yeah, and that's important to say too, because if you read on Techstars online, you talk about how the team is important and you prefer teams, but you really, it's either it can be a solo founder or it can be a team with 12 people or 20. It doesn't matter, right? You're interested in the company, the people in the company.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so describe the first 2 weeks and tell us what that block is called, that time block, and kind of how it rolls.
Yeah. So we call the first 2 weeks Mentor Madness. And if you can imagine having 100 or more meetings in 2 weeks, that is what it is. So we bring in experts mostly from the community, a few that are remote, and we do 2 sessions a day, 4 days a week, where every company meets every mentor in 20-minute rapid fire sessions. And so they're really going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. And the goal of this is really to learn and collect as much data and information and get people's opinions and learn from their expertise and hear people that have no idea what they're talking about, and collect all of this together so that we can very quickly start to get more data points and distill it down to and give ourselves the ability to have a stronger opinion of what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. Right.
So we get that. That wasn't, I guess, it was the second week. You know, you get there and you have a couple of days to settle, and then you're like, okay, what, you get your elevator pitch down, you know, which your elevator pitch is like if you have 30 seconds to explain your business.
Yeah.
Okay, now go say that to 100 people over 2 weeks, like 10 to 15 meetings every day. You get 100 people, right? You get 100 different personalities. You got people that are really nice and say, that's awesome. And then you get people that are really not that nice in a good way and say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, right? But you get to respond that way to 100 people over 2 weeks, and it's pretty well run. Like it's like speed dating, you know, like they're in conference rooms, we're moving around, so like, you know, another founder walks out and then you sit down and you kind of have to practice that, you know, how do you establish a relationship quickly. And then you might have mentioned it, I didn't catch it, we try to narrow it down to 4 to 6 key mentors that you've identified over the course of time, and taking notes is really important for that, to figure out like who actually connected with, that are going to help you throughout the whole Techstars program, right? Like this core group of people is going to be your core mentor group that you've identified, and they've identified you, right? That they want to work with you, and you work with them for the whole time.
Yeah, and I want to jump in there to make sure that everyone understands the you that Andrew is talking about is the founder. So I step out of the process, and the founders and the mentors find each other. And the goal is really, like Andrew said, like, you know, 3 to 5, 4 to 6, but somewhere in that range. And those mentors really become their core advisory team for the rest of the program. And, you know, you kind of treat them almost like a board of directors. It's a combination of lots of things. Like, where do I have a gap that I need help? Where am I strong, but want to be proven that maybe I'm not right. Sometimes getting a contrarian in the mix is awesome. Sometimes it's not. So it's really magical. So I try to step out of that. And I think one of the things that I love about that process is, and I have this conversation with new mentors all the time, and they're like, well, you know, I'm an expert in sales, or I'm expert in whatever. So, and I look at the companies and I'm not sure where I'm going to fit in before they meet. But serendipity is an amazing thing. And before I was in this role, I was a mentor, and I was always surprised by the companies that I would end up connecting with and working with, and they were never the ones that I thought, because personality is such an important part of that, and you never know what someone really needs. And the reality is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but so much of what the companies need is really just a sounding board and almost like a therapist, a business therapist, to help just talk out and think through all the challenges.
Yeah, right. And I knew one of the mentors came in. He was a tech history guy, but he came in with his briefcase full of his hiking clothes that he didn't like. He's like, I don't like the way these pants do this, and I don't like the way this jacket does this, and I love this one. And I was pretty sure he was going to be one of my mentors, and he has. That's Ed Hubbard, and he's still involved with the company to this day.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's a good point. I still keep in contact with several of the mentors. Now it's from several months past, so it's a long-term thing, and you do gain that through Techstars. The other thing is you use those mentors. You ask those mentors to come and hold mock board meetings. Like an actual true what would be a startup board. So you use, like, for over the course of the program, 3 months, you have 3 of these mock board meetings with these people, and they are supposed to act as board members. And so you get, as a founder, experience. If you're a first-time founder like me, I've never done anything like that. Never had accountability outside of the companies that I've run. And so that was an interesting, cool experience. And we still don't have a board, but when we do one day, or if we do, then that'll be a good experience to fall back on.
Yeah. We kind of call them mock board meetings, but the reality is, if you ran them right, they're pretty much what a board meeting should be, which is, here's a quick synopsis of what happened. Here are the things that we're working on. Here's the thing that's most important. Let's talk about that, and let's have some forward-looking conversation so that we can continue to move the business forward.
Yeah. All right. What kind of programming? So we're in a shared office, right? This is the setting. We're in a shared office, big open room. We've gotten past mentor madness. Now we got to work on our business, right? And that's if you were going to say, what is the percentage of time at the accelerator that we're either working on our business, or there's some sort of scheduled programming or lesson or speaker, and kind of describe that a little bit.
Yeah. And, it's a concern that most founders have before they come in, is like, well, what is this time commitment really like? Mm-hmm. And the reality is, it is, right? It is a lot more time, right? You still have to run your business. There's no expectation that that's going to stop, and there are other things you're going to do. And, correct me if you feel like I'm misstating this, but really the only time we own your calendar is through Mentor Madness, through those first couple of weeks. And what I always tell founders is, we are becoming investors in your company. Our job is not to get in the way of forward progress. It's to help forward progress. And if something ever doesn't feel like that's the case, let's have a conversation about that, because we want to get out of your way. We want to get behind you and push you forward. And so those first 2 weeks, they're tough. They are really, really hard to get through, because, you still have, sales calls or manufacturing calls or whatever. You still have all these other things you need to do. Plus you've got, 10 to 20 meetings a day, 4 days a week. After that, we are pretty disciplined about the schedule, so that, and I can tell someone the schedule 2 months before we start exactly what it's going to look like, so that you can plan for it. And we have this persistent schedule, and we've there's little changes year to year, but I've essentially run the same thing for the last 5 years, which is Monday mornings, we do a very quick CEO stand-up. The CEOs all go around, they take about 30, 45 seconds. Here's what I'm working on this week. Here's what I need help with. And it's a way for all of us to say, okay, I can help you with that. Take it offline. Every Monday, we also do a KPI meeting. And these, for me, are one of the most important things we do in the entire program, which is, they start off as, hey, what does it mean to be a metrics-driven business? And what are the metrics we should be focused on? And as the program goes on, it becomes a metrics meeting, which is, here's what I've worked on, here's what I've learned, here's how I measure it, here's what I'm working on next. So some of it is accountability. Most of the founders feel like that's what it is, especially in the beginning, but the meeting isn't for us. It's really for us to teach you how to have the discipline around being a metrics-driven business. Right. Tuesdays, we typically do nothing. It's open for the companies. The whole day is theirs. Wednesday mornings, we typically have a workshop, and the workshops, most of them are foundational. So they're things that can apply to every company, regardless of stage or product or whatever. And when something doesn't fit for a certain company and you don't want to be there, we just say, great, you shouldn't be there. And so that's a 2-hour block on Wednesday mornings. I think in your program, we had family night on Thursday nights. We're actually moving it to Wednesday nights, but we have on Wednesday or Thursday nights, we have a family night. What that means is that we take a little bit of time as the cohort or the class to have dinner together. We usually have a founder come in and tell sort of, an hour version of their life story or their business life story. And that's, that's supposed to be sort of this empathetic side, like, hey, this is really hard. Just because I was really, really successful doesn't mean I didn't also feel a lot of pain going through this process for a long time. And then we'll have a little social time, and then everyone goes home or goes back to work. And then Fridays we do a CEO breakfast and a CTO breakfast separately from one another, so that you can be with your peer group and you can talk about the things that are specific to you. And there's just a disciplined time where that group can get together. Right.
And that, as the founder side of this, the programming was well thought out to be relevant to any really industry, right? It was basic things like, here's corporate finance, right? That wasn't like, you're like finance, how to manage that. There's marketing, there's branding, things like that. No matter what business you're in, you need to study these things. Obviously, some are better than others, and the different instructors have different levels of charisma, right? So you flew in or brought in different instructors that are subject matter experts, and they have their presentation. So for the large part, they were awesome, and there was some, obviously some favorites. But I do want to point out those Thursday family dinners and the Friday morning CEO breakfast, like the two food-centered ones. Obviously, I was interested in that, but like that time when every Thursday we bring in a founder from the community to give their story and tell the real story about how they got to where they was super valuable. And I know that I think about those experiences a lot, because it gets hard, and you're like, okay, everybody did that. Or they failed, right? They failed a bunch of times before they figured it, how to do it. And that was interesting to hear and cool. And there were usually people that were very, very willing to give the real story. Yeah. I didn't get really the vibe of sugarcoating, and that was very much probably because of you coming in saying, don't sugarcoat it. You know what I mean? Like, this is real. Like, these people look at this group of like wide-eyed people. They need to know what it's really like. We say don't sugarcoat it, and we also make it clear that it's a safe space. Whatever is said there stays there. And so we tried to provide an environment where people could come in and not sugarcoat it. Right. Yeah, I think that's important. They knew that we weren't going to go and tell everybody about it afterwards. Yeah. And then the CEO breakfast was just a great time to vent. It was always like, what's the biggest thing on your mind right now that's keeping you up at night? Yeah, I know how it goes. There's things you can't talk about with your team or even your co-founders, right? There's things as a CEO. A CEO is a unique role, and I'm a big believer that you need to have mentors and peers and people that you can be 100% open, honest, and transparent with. And while you should have that with your team as a CEO, you also have a responsibility to keep the ship moving, to keep everyone's spirits up. So you need a group of people that you can have outside of that. And so a peer CEOs is a great way to do that. Right. So I want to ask you I want to ask you about Demo Day. Mm-hmm. So people talk a lot about it. If you Google Techstars, you hear about Demo Day. What's your take on Demo Day? Maybe explain a little bit about what it is. Yep. And what its place is within the overall program. Yeah. So I'll explain what Demo Day is first, and then I'll give you my take, which is a little bit different than I think the company line on it. But Demo Day is usually one of the last days of the program, where every company gets on stage and for 3 to 5 minutes, they pitch their business to a room full of people that could be investors. It's the community, it's mentors, it's peers, and it's a celebration. In the early days of not just Techstars but all accelerators, it was an event for investors to get a look at companies. But now there are so many demo days that my opinion is that part of it has been muddied down a little bit. And so I think about Demo Day a little bit differently, which is
It's a celebration, which is secondary, but most importantly, because it's a moment in time where you have to have your pitch nailed so people understand what it is that you do, it is an incredible forcing function when you have to stand on stage to really be able to articulate perfectly what you do, why you do it, why you exist, and all the other important parts of your business, and to do it in a really short, succinct manner. In fact, I think when I started, demo day pitches were meant to be 6 to 8 minutes long, and we actually shoot for 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. And then if you want to talk to a company, you can do that after the program, after demo day's over. Yeah.
So, from a founder perspective, we get there and we know that demo day is, kind of a big deal no matter which way, whether it's for investment or it's just for, there was 400 or so people in that all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was news there, and there was investors, there was friends, family. So like, it's, you can't screw it up, but that in your head throughout the program. You're like, don't worry about demo day. And you keep saying like, we're not going to talk about demo day. We're not working on demo day. We're working on your company, right? Work on your business, get your business right. And like 3 weeks out, or maybe it was 2 weeks out, we're like, we're working on demo day.
Yeah, like now it's time to work on demo day.
Every single day, there's a process to this, and like every day you go into pitch practice, and you start out. Remember, it's white slides, just text. Like, we don't want you to do any design work on a deck. If you're doing design work, I think you said like, I'm not going to listen. Like, come back with just the story arc. What are you going to say? Mm-hmm. And I remember the first day I walked in there with mine and did it. I had put, not enough time into it probably. And Christine, who was the manager of the program, general manager, what was her title?
Program manager. Program manager,
who she's moved on to work in another startup now, but she was an awesome woman. Looked at me after I got done. She goes, how's your mental health today? How are you feeling? And I was like, I'm pretty good. She's like, okay, that sucked. And it was just awful. You need to go back and just like, don't come back and show us the same thing again. I was like, okay, why? And because I had like an investor pitch, I had like market, data, team, yada, yada, yada. And you're like, this is not what this is. This is showing your company, tell us why it matters. And from that first day, like what I had on paper to what I ended up pitching was totally different. And what you said is totally true. The ability to articulate what was truly valuable about what we were doing, or at least what really made it valuable to me, has helped tremendously. Not just like in investing, trying to find investors, but just in marketing almost, and like really getting down to the guts of what it was. And what actually happened is, over the course of that 2 weeks of boiling it down, I actually went back to the stuff that I'd written a year ago, on our website and our values and our principles, and kind of went back to what the core of the business was. It didn't get me off on some different track. It actually was a clarifying process to bring it back to what I truly was working on in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that will probably happen during Techstars, especially after Mentor Madness. You get 100 different points of view, and you get 5 different mentors, and you get all this stuff, and you learn, and you're like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like, and that happened to me. Like, I don't know if we're going to be all of a sudden like a custom manufacturer for like, work uniforms. Like, well, that's a great market, like just weird stuff happens. And all of a sudden you're like, why am I even thinking about that? Like that's, and demo day, it happened before that, but like demo day really, that process brought me back to, at the end of the program, it was like, you kind of like, whereas Mentor Madness blows you up, demo day kind of brought it back together. So there's probably some intentionality to that.
It's totally intentional. And one of the things that if you remember that I tell you all before our first pitch practice is, no matter what you think of me now, and no matter what you think of Christine now, every single one of you will not like us at some point over the next 3 weeks. And and it's true because
like day one.
Yeah.
Cool. So what I'm going to skip over the mid accelerator day. So what would be the best part of doing what you do? What actually kind of fills you up and makes this worth it? You've been doing it for several years now.
Yeah, there isn't a single best part. If I had to try to summarize it, it's going to sound really corny, but it's just getting to work with really cool, smart people. But there's more than 2, but there's at least 2 sort of main parts to my job. Now, I spend 9 months meeting lots of companies, and I'm meeting companies, sometimes all over the world at different founders, different stages. And that is really energizing. It's, when you hear people that are really passionate about the thing that they're doing, for me, I get really lit up. And I'll give you an example, and it's not for everybody, but on an average day, I'm probably doing 15 meetings a day this time of year, 4 days a week, because I need a day to actually look at my email. So if you imagine doing 40 meetings with people a week, most of them are new meetings. They're 20, 30 minutes long. I find that really energizing, and I leave really psyched, right? Like having hope for the world and being pumped. And then for 3 months a year, I get to then pick the people and the projects that I want to work on. And then for 3 months a year, I get to work with people that I think I'm going to really like, that hopefully will like me too, and on projects and companies that are interesting to me. So for me, this is a dream job, right? Like I get the best of everything, right? I get to meet lots of really cool, interesting, smart people. I get to work on really cool and interesting things, and and I get to hopefully be a part of it for a long time to come.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna ask one more question, and that is, we didn't touch on it. I think it's very valuable. So that there is the after Techstars community. So we have Techstars, which is 3 months. You're in there. We're with the staff. I'm sitting there with you in the same office and the rest of the staff, which we should note, you're not by yourself. You have a program director. And then also Austin runs the impact program. So there's a whole other set of managing director and program director there in the same office that are taking those meetings that you referred to for another accelerator, but they're also there to help us out too. So we kind of got, you get at Austin, you get like a double whammy.
Yeah.
So you have all that there. And then after you're done with the program, you talk about it, you're in Techstars for life. So describe a little bit about after the program and what founders have accessible to them as support for, forever.
Yeah. There's no simple way to describe it, and it's different for every founder, but the simplest way to describe it is that we're 50 programs. We're in, over 100 countries around the world. And we have this massive network, right? We've got thousands of mentors we've invested in 1,900 companies. So you now have 1,900 peers. And we've got this incredible network. And if there's someone you want to meet or something you need to get done or something you don't understand, we've developed resources and ways to tap into that. And so I was talking to a founder earlier today who said, hey, do you happen to know anybody who knows how to optimize Facebook pages, right? Simple question. The founder didn't know how to do that. I'm like, I might, but have you gone on to Techstars Connect, which is what we talked to? Because there's 1,900 other people, and I would guarantee that several of them know exactly how to do that, and they also might have a resource. And so the reason I point people there is because I don't have all the answers. I don't even have close to all the answers, but our network probably has every single answer that you can ever imagine. And if not, at least have some good advice on direction on how to figure out the right answer.
Right. And Techstars Connect, for anybody watching, is like a web forum, right? So if you're like interested in trucks or cars or whatever, you find a web forum and you're interested in it. It's for, you have this forum format. It's like that, but it's invite only for Techstars founders and mentors.
Yeah. And it's more, and it's that, and it's more than that, which is like, for example, we've had, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of investors invest in Techstars companies. We have another area where you can go and you can actually use criteria to search for investors that have invested in companies like mine in certain regions. And then you can see, what do people say about them? What companies did they invest in? And what do people say about them?
The review part is kind of,
yeah, and then if you want an intro, you know exactly what companies they've invested in already, or which exact company. So you can go to that company CEO who is a peer of yours, because they're also a Techstars founder. You can say, hey, I'm a Techstars founder too. Here, here's an email. Can you forward this to that investor and see if they'd be willing to talk to me also? And then now you're getting a warm introduction from a family member, another Techstars alumni. So you're getting a warm intro into somebody you might not have otherwise even known existed.
Right. Yeah. And it's been extremely helpful so far. I've used it. I've actually been helpful to people on it, which is kind of cool too. Like people that wanted to talk about crowdfunding, I was able to talk about that. That was cool. But I've gotten help. It's also one of like the answers I hate hearing the most from like you or anybody else. I asked a question to you, and like, have you checked Connect? I'm like, no, I don't want to do the work. I want you to tell me. So several times I've asked you a question. You're like, I don't know. Have you checked Connect? I'm like, no, I will.
Yeah.
Do that, but I'm just trying.
Yeah.
Know,
well,
so,
as you've learned, I don't know anything. I know how to leverage a network.
Yeah. No, it's a really great answer. It's just one of those things like you ask a question to like, you know, basically like you ask a question in class in school and like, well, did you read it? And you're like, well, no. Tell me the answer. Okay, well, I appreciate your time. I know it's very valuable, and I thank you for coming on. And I thank everybody who's been on here kind of coming and going as we go. This will be available on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel right here. We do these regularly. I bring people on to talk to them, and then we also just post things about LIVSN and our products and outdoor recreation too. So it's not always about tech startups, but it is somewhat interesting, I think, that, a company that makes outdoor clothing wanted a Techstars, and I figure we'd give a little bit of the reasoning on why we did it. And it was mainly for people like you and this mentorship and getting into this network and seeing companies around you work at such a high level. It's been great. So I appreciate it. And thank you.
Man, good to see you. When are you coming down so we can go mountain biking?
Soon. I mean, I need to be down there. I've got most of my family in Austin. We'll make a trip here soon.
All right, cool.
At least before the end of the year.
Good.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. Take care. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you.